What's going on, everybody? Justin here with the Podcast Dojo. So today on Abandoned Locations, we are going to be talking about Regency Mall. Well, not Regency Mall here in Richmond, Virginia, Regency Mall in Augusta, Georgia. So this was requested by Elevating with Leno. I know I said in the last video that I would be doing Owing Mills Mall next. Well, to tell you the truth, I got really intrigued by the name Regency Mall. As I said, we have one here in Richmond, Virginia, so when I saw there was one in Augusta, Georgia, I had to check it out. So next week we will do Owing Mills Mall, but until then, let's go ahead on down to Augusta, Georgia and check out Regency Mall. Regency Mall was opened on July 27, 1978 by Edward J. Del Bartolo. You know, the same guy behind Randall Park Mall. So originally this was going to be part of Regency Square, which was going to have condominiums, a shopping plaza, and hotel. It was chosen to be located near the Central Savannah River at the intersection of US 1 and Gordon Highway due to accessibility for the area. In 1976, Montgomery Ward, Belk, and J.B. White announced that they would become the first anchor stores. J.C. Penney's considered becoming an anchor store but chose to go to Augusta Mall instead, and boy did they make a good decision. Cullums announced in early 1978 that they would become the fourth anchor. When the mall opened, it was currently the largest indoor shopping mall in Georgia at 800,000 square feet. The day the mall opened, only 70 of the 139 stores were open. Cullums was still under construction and did not open until the later parts of 1978. Belk would not be completed until 1979. Just a week after Regency opened, Augusta Mall opened. Augusta was a smaller mall with only 2 anchors and around 100 stores. However, De Bartolo's team was not worried about Augusta Mall and just viewed them as nothing more than friendly competition. However, competition wasn't the main problem here. Problem started in 1986 when a 16-year-old girl was abducted in the parking lot, raped, and shot 4 times. Luckily, the perpetrator was caught, and it was done by a 17-year-old boy named Alexander E. Williams IV. He was originally sentenced to death but got off due to insanity, so he got life in prison until he took his own life in 2002. Another crime happened 3 years later when an 18-year-old girl was shot by a man who had been hiding in the back of her car, leaving her paralyzed. I didn't find much information on this crime other than the fact that the family sued De Bartolo for poor security at the mall. However, I know that the case with the 16-year-old girl made the news. With some of the malls I've covered, we know that once the crime starts showing up, the shoppers tend to stop showing up. It didn't help that Augusta had varying levels of income families. In southern parts of Georgia, you had moderate income. East had lower income, and central and west parts had higher income. To make things even worse for Regency, the stores in Regency were just so out of the majority's price range, such as a fur coat store. Yeah, a fur coat store in Augusta, Georgia. Makes sense. I looked up the average temperature in Augusta, and the average low temperature is about 50 degrees. Yeah, not exactly fur coat weather. The first of the anchor stores to go down was Upton's, which had been in the space originally built for Cullums. Upton's closed in 1993 along with 7 other stores. Mall traffic had already been declining at this point. In 1995, De Bartolo transferred the malls to Equitable Real Estate on the condition that the $12.5 million debt from Bartolo was forgiven. Belk became an outlet center and closed in 1996. The mall would be sold to Witchard & Wu in 1997 for under $4.15 million, when it was valued at about $33.5 million. Witchard & Wu cut store rates for tenants from paying $9 to $18 per square foot to as low as $3.50 a square foot. It attracted new tenants, but it wasn't enough to save it. On top of that, Wu wanted to renovate the mall, but didn't want to risk the $30 million to renovate the mall. In 1998, J.B. White's moved to Augusta Mall and closed their Regency location. Utilities were becoming a problem too. Escalators were shut off to save money on electricity, and even Montgomery Wards boarded up their mall entrance to save on heating and air. Witchard bought Wu's share of the mall for $2.7 million and tried to get Augusta or Richmond County to buy it, but with no luck. In 1999, AMC wanted to buy the mall and turn it into an entertainment center with an amusement park an ice rink to include office space and specialty store, but also nothing happens. Things got even worse when Montgomery Wards announced in 2000 that they would be closing all stores in 2001 due to bankruptcy. Once it closed, all anchors were now gone. In 2002, Wichard sold the mall to Cardinal Entities of Mattituck, New York for $3.5 million. Cardinal wanted to lease office spaces and revive the food court, but none of the above happened after the office spaces didn't get leased. In 2003, Cardinal decided to count his losses and keep the mall closed for good. There were many plans for the dead shopping center, such as a church or a school, but nothing came to fruition. Currently, the mall still sits abandoned, but with all interior walls removed and the entrance and sealed off. Like most abandoned buildings, it has been victim to vandalism and arson. I read that one of the reasons for the closing was crimes happening at the mall. Not just the incident with the 16 and 18-year-old girls. I couldn't find a lot of information as to what those crimes were. I can imagine just petty crimes like fights and car break-ins. But up until the incident in 1986, the mall did very well. But since the incident did gain a lot of media attention, I think it did make people think the mall was dangerous and opted to go elsewhere. The various income levels just weren't enough to keep two malls open, although the Augusta Mall is still open today and has expanded quite a bit. So there are a few what-if scenarios I can think of, but I'll stick with two. First, what if JCPenney's had stayed as an anchor, and the other if the original plan to keep the shopping plaza with hotels had stayed. If JCPenney's had stayed as an anchor, I think this would have made things a little better, because it would have been a store that would have been more within the local population's price range. As I mentioned before, one of Regency's problems was that the shops were just way too expensive for the majority in this area. Not a cure-all for the mall, but would have helped. Although the mall would still most likely have failed due to crime and Montgomery Ward's filing for bankruptcy. Now let's talk about the original plan with the hotels and the shopping plaza. In all honesty, I think this would have failed even faster than Regency Mall did. Condominiums are usually more expensive than regular apartments, so based on the data we have about the income in the area, highly unlikely anyone would have been able to afford it. I can't say for sure, because I don't know what the planned price would have been to live there. The shopping plaza would have been okay as long as they didn't make the same mistakes the mall did with having the stores that were too expensive to shop at. The hotels, well, I lived in Georgia for a year, and while I knew a fair amount of people from Augusta, I never really heard of Augusta being a tourist area. Not like Savannah or Atlanta anyway. Plus, I can only assume the same or similar crime still would have happened. Well, that was Regency Mall. Thank you Elevating with Leno for suggesting this video. Next week, Owing Mills Mall, and then we continue on with the rest of the list. Everybody, have a good day, and we will catch you next time.